Welcome to Commander Central, episode 59, and today we are going to be talking about Guilds of Ravnica.
And the greatest Boros general ever printed.
I'm not sure which one you're talking about because I think they both the new Boros generals might be vying for that crown. But we'll get into that later on. Max is just ecstatic with both of them. And I think we will all probably also agree this is definitely one of the top 3 Ravnica blocks ever printed.
I would hope so.
So we'll cover that as well.
Math is my strong suit.
I am Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
All right. I'm looking forward to Ravnica, so we'll get into that. And Max's barely contained glee for 2 brand new fantastic Boros generals. But first, let's talk some games we played this week. Chris was out with the flu.
I'm still dying.
Yeah, you still sound a little bit rough, but you've
I
fought
feel
it off.
better at least.
Yeah, that's good. But Max was there. You played a few games.
I did.
Any fun games?
I beat your dragon deck,
You did. You laughed with us.
and it confused me because I just assumed every creature in that deck had flying. So I killed you 1 turn later than I could have.
Because he didn't attack because he thought I had a flying blocker when I didn't, in fact, have a flying
Dragon's Egg
blocker.
does not have flying.
No, it was a changeling.
It was a changeling. It was a bad change. Dragon's Egg doesn't have flying, but so there's 2 of them in that deck that don't have flying.
And technically, Slumbering Dragon if it's not activated.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, it tripped me up, but now I know for next
So
time.
I bought myself a turn, and then you still killed me the next
Yeah.
turn, so it was fine.
You should feel good about beating Mono Red and EDH.
Mm-hmm. No, I shouldn't.
I think that deck may not be long of this earth. I think it's going to be retired in the near future. It's fine, but it plays the same every single game. I'm aggro and dragons, and if I run out of gas, I lose. So, but it was a fun experiment, and that was fine. After Max left, I played a game with Patreon supporter James. Shout out to James, who stopped into the shop to play some games, and he's heading to Hong Kong next.
Holy hammer.
Yeah, so he would not be probably coming back to the shop anytime in the near future to play any games. So I played a game with him and a couple other guys. And it was a long game. It wasn't long because it was boring. It was long because whenever someone did a thing, someone had an answer. So it's one of those games where like just back and forth nonstop.
Reminiscent of last Saturday at the doctor's house.
Yeah, kind of. Like someone would play like a thing they were going to go off with, and someone had the removal spell at instant speed to stop it. And the example I'm going to use for this was it came back around, and the guy playing the token deck had a bunch of things in play that were going to blow up the next turn. He had like a Doubling Season in play and like a Cathar's Crusade, and he had Martyr's Bond, where if you destroy a permanent that player, if a permanent that player controls gets destroyed. Karmic Justice, yeah, that's what it was. So you couldn't really hit his stuff either. It was like a lock, and it came back to me, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to draw to deal with these 14 things in play. And I drew Yawgmoth's Will after having been milled a couple times, so I had like 25 cards in my graveyard, and I'm like, oh, well, there's a Windgrace's Judgment, and there's a Deglamour, and there's a Maelstrom Pulse, and I had everything in there. I'm like, I don't have enough mana for all that. Oh, there's that Urborg I milled, and I had a Cabal Coffers in play. So I played my Urborg to give myself all the mana, and then I cast like 8 spells out of my graveyard, and I needed every single one of them to take down first all his stuff, and then I had 4 mana left for a Damnation to wipe the board of all the tokens.
Oh, so good.
Wow.
So that felt great. That was like the one guy I wasn't even like, I don't know what I'm going to draw that's going to kill 5 enchantments and his board state and, leave me not dead, and I hit it. So that felt really, really good. And then I lost the game later on. James won that one with, is it Vona? No, he's got the black-white. It was the black-white general. Elenda. With Cathar's Crusade out. And he had buffed Elenda with something and then sacked her. And those 7 tokens came into play, all with 7 counters on them. So I took 50 to the face, and that was the end of that game. But it was a good game.
Wow.
And I had something weird happen playing last weekend in a game where a player had out Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood, but he didn't have a way to deal damage to get the loop going to win the game.
Okay.
So he passed the turn to me, at which point we realized, oh, I have Mana Crypt in play. At which, if I lose the coin flip, I take 3 damage.
Oh, no.
That starts the loop. And I won the coin flip. And it went back around, and I had no removal in hand, so like I did what I could, came back around to him. He still couldn't get through for damage, came back to me, and I won it again. I won the coin flip again, and then managed to. I think I killed him, and then I think I lost the game to the third player. But
I never win the coin flip ever.
I was sure I was not. I was like, oh man, with the entire game riding on the coin flip, and I won it both times. So I was impressed with because that was definitely skill, I think, in my part.
Yes. Save that for Vegas next year, and we'll just go play craps all night long.
Any MVP cards that you saw, Max?
I had a nice Piers Whim this week.
That's one of mine. I don't know if I saw yours, because I cast it once too to good effect, but I think I saw yours cast as well.
Yeah, I cast it mainly because it was the only ramp spell in my opening hand, but at that point in the game, by turn 4, it killed 2 artifacts. It
killed a Soul Ring, a Signet, I think.
And the third player it whiffed on. They didn't have anything.
But who cares?
I still got my land.
And it's not a basic. You got like whatever fixing land you needed too.
It was a good play. I liked it. It's a good card. I'm really happy with it in the inclusion into the deck.
Yeah, I like that card a lot too. I had a Scavenger Ground that saved my butt from a Chainer.
Oh.
Chainer was going to reanimate Sepulchral Primordial, which then would have reanimated things from everybody else's graveyard when it hit the battlefield. I was able to Scavenger Grounds in response in the graveyard. That saved my butt. I've been a fan of that card. I am currently testing out. I put the black and the green desert in one of my decks where I'm running it, and I want to see if having a couple different options to sacrifice to it versus sacrificing itself, so I can keep it on the field and use it again if I need to, is worth it. So I'm trying that out currently.
Are you trying the cycling deserts or the Painland deserts?
I use the Painland ones.
Okay.
That way I don't have to deal with them coming into play tapped.
The ones that have other abilities?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Haship Oasis and
Ravnica Ruins.
Ifnet, whatever.
Yep.
It's my Glypha deck, so it's the black-green one.
Okay.
And I don't know if I'll ever use the abilities, but it's also an option if I need to. So I'm testing those out. I will report back in a few months and when I've actually tried it and see if it works or not. All right. Let's take a look at social media. Anything exciting going on there?
People didn't like our opinions of dual lands that we no longer play.
It was back and forth. We had some people that were like, oh, I just play Guild Gates anyway. In which case, I'm like, all right, well.
I will be talking about Guild Gates later.
Some people did say, though, like the Shadows over Innistrad lands was the one I saw mentioned the most frequently that people have either didn't run in the first place, or once they got the cyclers and the price fell on filters, they just quit running the Shadows over Innistrad lands. So that did come up a little bit. But I still think at this point, even if you don't have fetches and don't have original duels, I think there's enough stuff. There's too many dual lands to run all of them.
Like Guild Gates.
Oh, snap. Chris came ready to fight today.
He is. I'll be curious to see what you think of the new Guild Gate stuff in the set.
This is why we're going to talk about this.
Are you going to build a 5-color Maze's End deck?
I'm tempted. With Ramos as a general.
Seriously, yeah. That would be cool to see.
I just got a shiny new Ramos.
We might have to talk.
No, I need them.
Where did you get your Ramos at?
Flipsidegaming.com. Using promo code CMDR, I got a nice 10% off my order. And if you go shopping and use our promo code, you'll get 10% off your order and entered in to win a box of Guilds of Ravnica. So, support us and hopefully win that box.
Absolutely. I actually went to make an order from them today, in part because I want a card, in part because I'm like, I might as well enter myself in the contest too.
Right.
And I wanted to get the a card we'll be talking about probably at some point here is there's a new Sphinx in Ravnica that's a Nightmare Sphinx. And I wanted to order a foil for my Sphinx deck. And I'm like, oh, it's like pre-ordering at $35 everywhere. And I'm like, I'll just wait that out because that's not a $35 card in, a week from now. It's a $10 card a week from now. So I'm like, I'll just be patient on that one. So yeah, I need to get one though. I'll get in the contest and hopefully Chris and I can win it. High five.
Well, here, I'll be the nice guy on the podcast. If for some reason I win the box, I'll give the packs out as prizes.
There you go. You know what? You guilted me into it. I didn't even think of that.
You greedy mother.
I didn't think of it because I'm selfish. I'll do the same. If I happen to win it, I will do the same. I will give it out.
As will I after I crack them on reveal them.
Right.
Why are there gate crash cards in here?
How come I can't believe I got a box and there's no copies of Assassin's Trophy.
No, it's just going to be like a blank token card that says Assassin's Trophy.
Right. It's written.
Thank you from Chris.
Chris's kid is written on it in crayon. Assassin's Trophy. Speaking of, There was Don Miner at EDH Rec wanted to build a new Niv Mizzet deck with the new Niv Mizzet in the set, and so he wanted to test it out. So to proxy it, he's like, I'm just gonna do a proxy Niv Mizzet card, and he had one of his kids draw it. It's the best Niv Mizzet. Niv Mizzet's got a big smiley face like a sunflower.
He looks all dopey.
Yeah,
like,
I'll find it and I'll tweet it in the show notes next week because it's a fantastic picture.
It doesn't come in foil, I found out, so
it does not,
I'm not interested anymore.
Max asked if it came in foil. It does not. But that would be a fantastic promo. You know what? I'll talk to the guys next week and see on the EDH Recast. See if we can do that for a giveaway. See if we can get them to give away that Niv Mizzet. That would be awesome. Okay. Social media. If you want to hit us up and complain about how we don't like Shadows and Overrated Shadowlands or anything else, where will you find us on the interwebs?
You'll find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. Facebook search us CMDR Central. YouTube search us, which mainly that's where you're going to find our show, that kind of stuff. We don't really do too much on YouTube.
For now.
Yep. CMDR Central. Or you can find us online at cmdrcentral.com.
And, of course, we're on Patreon by searching CMDR Central. For those listening, you might notice a small edit to all of our reward tiers. We removed the mention of a contest because I guess that's breaking terms of use. Our bad.
Yes.
We don't have a lawyer yet, so whatever.
Right.
But we are still doing our monthly drawings for Patreon. We just can't publicly advertise them on the page.
Now, I do specialize in bird law. I don't know if you knew that or not. Myself and Charlie Kelly are the only practitioners of bird law in the country.
Oh, boy.
Chris is a blank look on his face because he doesn't watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
He didn't get the toe knife reference earlier.
He doesn't listen to the podcast Max and I do, the It's Always Sunny pod.
That's what we do after EDH on Tuesdays.
Right.
We host that one.
That makes no sense because you leave an hour before Dana does.
Yeah, I got to get in character.
Oh,
right,
okay.
yeah, right. There you go. Max is the Nightman. And I think I mentioned this before, but we had Patreon supporter James stop in the shop and play a game with us. And we also had Patreon supporter Jerry last week stop in and play some games.
Yeah, and we have 4 new people to announce.
Oh, well, what are their names?
So we want to say thank you to Bertram Williams for supporting us. Steve Botier. I know I butchered that, so I apologize. Marcus. And then Brian Todd is the most recent one. So thank you, everybody, for supporting us on Patreon. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And those supporters, as well as all the existing Patreon supporters, will be entered in a contest we're giving away this month. A copy of, what deck is it, Max?
It is the complete Marin Clan of Neltoth deck.
Ah, that's right, Marin.
From Commander Anthology 1, I believe.
Yes. Sleeved up.
Sleeved up with an Ultra Pro Satin Tower. All the tokens involved, too. It was literally traded into our LGS D20 Gaming here in Eau Claire in the box itself. And so we thank Phil and Savannah for generously donating that to the drawing for this month.
D20 is a excellent sort of play. That's where we play every Tuesday if you want to come find us in Eau Claire. And they are hooking us up with an excellent giveaway this month. So thank you very much to the shop. And come see us there if you happen to be in the area.
We're going to totally point you in the other direction. That's what Chris does.
Is that right? Yeah, Chris hasn't really done that. Someone's been like, hey, are the guys in Commander Central here? And Chris is like, I don't know. I think they're over there.
And then you laughed, and they're like, wait a minute.
Like that.
and you're also like the least shy. It's not like you're doing it because you're shy. You're like literally the least shy person.
Just troll somebody.
Right.
I'll just be sitting there, kick back, be like, yeah, they're over there.
And then they hear you laugh and go, wait a minute, that was Chris. We're like, yeah.
We also have a Twitter giveaway this month.
Yeah, so the Twitter giveaway, if you retweet any of our tweets with CMDR Fall, you will be entered in to win the oversized Jester's Cap from Ice Age.
Nice.
That was picked up in one of Dana's meth head collections.
It was. I don't remember.
Or was this the bleeding deer carcass?
I don't remember where I found this one, but it was definitely something sketchy because that's most of the collections I find. So yeah, that will be a cool little piece of magic history you can have. We'll send that out to somebody on Twitter.
Yeah.
So good luck with that as well. Any other business before we move on to talking about Return to Ravnica?
This is my last show.
Max is done.
Oh, we should stop telling people to be using Graveyard Hate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for that.
And that's not just one person. Like multiple people have been like, stop telling people to put Graveyard Hate. It shuts down my Marin deck or my Windgrace deck or my I think you kind of missed the point of what we're doing on the podcast.
We purposely say it to spite you guys.
I actually, and I had somebody, and I won't go into names, but like, because sometimes we do tell stories about games we played, like we did this show, and there was somebody we play in our local shop who plays a Windgrace deck, and I had mentioned like a week or two ago playing a game, and the Windgrace player like got all salty and scooped, and that guy's like, this week he's like, did I really act all salty and scoop? I don't remember, throwing a tantrum. I'm like, and I was like, what? Because I didn't know what he was talking about at first. And then it took me about 10 seconds to realize talking about the show. And I'm like, oh, no, that wasn't you. That wasn't somebody else. He's like, oh, good. I was trying to I'm like, man, you spent the whole week then I felt bad because he spent the whole week thinking I thought he was being a jerk about it. So no, it wasn't him. I'll have to be more careful when I mention somebody doing something like that I don't leave our poor friend Ben thinking I'm talking about him.
That's why I just call people out.
Yeah, right.
Just if they scoop or
just
something,
straight up
like,
say it.
Oh, the salt is flowing deep.
That's probably a good policy. Okay, let's take a look at guilds of Ravnica. In this case, 5 guilds of Ravnica, because we're really only getting 5 of them. We try to do these review shows a little bit different every time. It's really easy just to talk about 50 cards, and every show does that. I don't think we want to do that.
I don't want to talk about 50
right.
cards.
So we're this time around we're just going to pick one card from each card type basically and talk about it a little bit. Particularly ones that we think have an impact on EDH or are interesting. So we'll start with the one that's probably the most challenging because there's just not a ton of artifacts. We'll start with artifacts.
Sure. Chromatic Lantern. Done. Okay.
Easy.
Let's go home.
I purposely didn't write that one down.
I didn't either.
It's the only one I could write down.
But it needed a reprint. It probably goes.
It didn't.
Because you have.
I have play
you have
sets of
surplus
foils
of them. And it's the same art.
Same art, different flavor text.
But it's a great card. If you're playing 3 or more colors, you probably should be running it.
It's better than Darksteel Ingot.
It is better than Manolith.
That
if you want to go back and look up any articles on EDH Rec about Manolith. But it's just a great card. I remember the first time I read it, actually, I was like, oh, it fixes your mana perfectly. I'm like, that's amazing. I'll run that. And it was 2 games before I realized it also tapped for mana.
Oh, no.
But it was still good. Even not realizing that, I'm like, oh, in this 5-color deck, I don't remember what deck I was trying to play that was 5 colors, but I'm like, that's fantastic. And then when I realized it actually is just a mana rock that also does that, it's absurd.
It broken.
Yeah, that's just a great card, and I'm glad they reprinted it, even if Max's foils maybe don't love it quite so much.
They'll only dip a little bit.
They're also old border, so.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you guys think of the Locket cycle. So in the past, we've had the Signets, which are staples. The Clue Stones get played a little bit.
Here's my resignation, Dana. I don't even want to talk about these cards.
It's Chris's last show, too, everybody.
Right. The Locket cycle was too much. Okay, so for those who don't know, they cost 3 to cast. Artifacts, you can tap them for the appropriate color. So like in the case of Boros Locket, you can tap it for a white and a red. And you can spend 4 mana. It's 4 hybrid symbols, so any combination of red and white to tap it and sacrifice the Locket to draw 2 cards. So the Clue Stones last time were essentially a 3 mana where you spent a white and a red, or the 2 colors.
Yep.
But you couldn't do 2 white, 2 red. It had to be one of each to crack it to draw 1 card. So it's kind of like essentially twice as much mana to draw twice as many cards. Are these at all playable, do you think?
Not unless you're really looking hard for something.
Dean Goody off Command Time was kind of liking them a little bit because he said he likes the Clue Stones more than he did initially. Man, 4 mana is a lot. Like even if it draws you 2 cards, 2 to draw 1 is something pretty easy to sneak in when you've kept mana open for that Teferi's Protection or for a Boros Charm that you didn't need. You're like, okay, well, for an end turn, I'm going to crack this rock. Keeping 4 open, 4 specifically of those colors is much tougher. I think maybe in Boros.
Maybe. If they do the Rakdos one in the next set, then maybe the Rakdos one too, but that's about it.
Black has pretty good draw, though. I still don't know.
It does, but it's also color fixing for you.
Sure.
At 3 mana for a mana rock that color fixes.
Like I said, and it's still better than Manolith. It does a thing. There's still plenty of rocks that are worse than this.
I can't think of the card to save my life right now, but the 4 mana one that you can tap.
Hedron
Archive.
That one. I'd rather just run that.
It creates 2 colorless and then costs.
It costs
4
4
to sack to draw 2 cards.
Right.
But it's easier. It costs 1 more to cast, but it's also much, much easier to crack that than this.
Way easier. And it's colorless, so you can put it in any deck.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other artifacts, Max, you want to touch on here?
I found the Rampaging Monument pretty interesting. This is a 4-mana artifact creature cleric. It has trample, and it enters the battlefield with 3+1/+1 counters on it. But then whenever you cast a multicolored spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it.
So it's a baby Ramos.
It's a baby Ramos.
That can go in any deck.
In any deck, so something like Kresh.
Sure.
It would be good in, so Skullbriar, any +1/+1 shenanigan deck, appear in Toothy deck, where you're going to be playing a lot of multicolored spells. I think this is a nice 4-mana trampler. I mean, 3/3 with trample for 4 mana isn't great, but it's better than a lot of stuff.
Yep. Well, and you mentioned being a mini Ramos. It actually probably is quite good in that Ramos deck because most of the Ramos decks I've seen, they tend to run a lot of multicolor spells just to proc the counters in Ramos. Well, this is just another thing that's going to benefit from what you're already doing.
Right.
It's an interesting card, and it makes sense in that deck. I kind of had skipped over it, but that's a good call.
Right.
Anything else before we move on to instants? There's just not a ton of artifacts in the set because it's.
I have another one that I will talk about later.
Okay. All right.
Whoa.
Instant spells. Anything catch you guys' eyes there?
Chris, you want to start?
Trying to debate which one I want to talk about because I have like 5 of them on here.
Well, so here
I went real ham with some of these.
Well, here's what I'll start with, just because we might as well mention it: Assassin's Trophy, because it's the easy one. Like if everyone was picking the best spell in this set or maybe the last 5 sets, it would be Assassin's Trophy. I guess Karn exists and so does Teferi, but like this is a really, really great card in every format.
Yeah, easily.
I mean,
is it
Legacy?
better?
Maybe not, but
Is it better than Fatal Push in other formats?
No.
Okay, that was
Fatal
my
Push
theory.
is 1 mana, whereas Assassin's Trophy's 2, plus Assassin's Trophy gives you something, whereas Fatal Push you can sack a fetch to destroy something with 4 or greater.
Right, the Revolt
Yep.
is better on... Okay.
And then like Legacy, Abrupt Decay dodges dazes and it dodges things like that, whereas this doesn't. But it's just a great, great card. And Abrupt Decay in Commander, I don't run Abrupt Decay in any of my decks. Number one, I don't play CDH, and if I did, it makes sense there because the decks are so much faster. In non-CDH Commander, I don't play Abrupt Decay because I feel like there's too many things it doesn't hit. This hits all those things, and I do not absolutely care about giving you a land to have a Path to Exile that hits everything, including other lands.
Yep.
And if you're playing against someone who has a very greedy mana base, I think it's a basic Assassin's Trophy gets, right?
Yes.
So if they're playing a very greedy mana base with very little basics,
they might not have one.
That's a fail to find.
Right. Instant speed, too.
Right.
This would be a great card at sorcery speed.
Yeah. That's Dreadbore, essentially.
Right. But as an instant, it's
off the wall.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I definitely, I mean, I would imagine like if I don't have it in a black-green deck, it's because I don't have one or I didn't want to spend
$5,000.
Right, whatever it is. Because the non-foils are going for like 30 right now, and the foils are over 100. Now that'll drop, I mean.
A little bit.
But I don't know how much.
Right.
Like it's going to drop, but it's not going to be, it's never going to be a cheap card.
No.
Although I could see them doing it for an F&M maybe at some point down the road. Okay, so obviously that's a disgustingly good card. Any other ones that you guys like?
I have one.
What is it?
Mine is Bounty of Might. So it's 6 mana, 4 and 2 green for an instant, and it reads, target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn.
Now, did you just repeat yourself 3 times?
No.
They could have worded that so much better.
Well, I asked our Slack community last night when I was doing my notes, because I'm like, do I need 3 different targets for this? No. You can target the same thing with all 3 targets.
Yep.
So 6 mana for 3 giant gross isn't great. But giving Dramoka +9/+9
on one card
is great. I think this is better than having to hard cast something like Become Immense, which gives you +6/+6 for 6 mana if you can't delve anything away for whatever reason. You can also spread the wealth. You can give something +3/+3 and something +6/+6. So,
and if you happen like in your Dramoka deck where you run Berserk, that you one shot somebody.
Right.
Now it's not cheap, but 6 mana.
Or if you play like a red-green like Zada type deck where you just want to be able to pump all your guys, if you hit Zada with this,
any single infect creature.
Oh.
Kill somebody. Now, Hatred can do that too, but Hatred, you might have to spend 10 life or whatever. For one more mana than Hatred, this also just kills somebody with Infect.
Yep.
So I definitely, we have a friend that plays an Infect Hapatra deck. I would imagine this is going in there because anything he gets swings through it then just kills somebody if this is in hand. So, yeah, that's a cool card. First I saw it, I thought it was kind of lazy. I'm like, what?
I thought it was a misprint, honestly. Like, that, is it printed weird? Is the website bringing it up weird? But nope, that's legitimately what it does.
And there is some old, from the first Ravnica set, there's a weird, I want to say it's a Selesnya card that's kind of templated similarly, that has like the same mode 3 times like that on it, but I don't remember what, I should have figured out what it was. I've seen it before, but I can't recall what it was. So any instance you are liking here, Chris?
I like quite a few of them. First one I'm going to talk about is Chance for Glory. Instant speed, 3 mana, 1 colorless, red, white. Creatures you control gain indestructible. Then you take an extra turn after this one. At the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game.
It doesn't say creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn.
Nope.
They just gain indestructible.
Yep. That's one of the reasons I read that, and I'm like, oh, that's cute.
Now you have to find a way to dodge so you lose the game next turn.
Yes,
if you want to
do.
It. But some decks, there's decks that are running Sundial of the Infinite for other reasons, whether it's because they don't want to sacrifice a thing or whatever. Now I don't know if there's any Boros ones that really do. I checked EDH Rec actually, and none of the top 10, I think, Boros commanders had Sundial in the deck. But maybe there's like a 3-color deck that I'm not thinking of that tends to run Sundial and might want this that does have Boros in the colors.
I do like this card for the reason of instant speed. So let's say someone goes to board wipe. You cast this. It'll be close to end of game type. It just saves everything. Then you're like, okay, the guy passes their turn. You're like, okay, now it's my turn.
Right.
Skips the other players, goes into your turn, and if you have ability to kill, you just kill.
Yep. I think this has a place in like the no turn decks, like those 5-color no turn decks. But I'm not good enough a player to play those decks because those are really trigger intensive.
I'm wondering if it would be a thing in Narset where you're planning on just looping extra turns. No, wait, Narset doesn't have white.
Yeah, it does. It's Jeskai.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is. Duh. So yeah, I wonder if maybe that will be a thing in there. I don't know.
You would still need to figure out how to get the trigger off the
trigger.
stack.
That's true. Yeah. But I like it. It's a
time stop.
It's a neat card. And the
time stop.
Right? Yeah. There's a couple ways to get around it.
Yep.
So you can stifle the trigger. I mean, if you've got blue like in Jeskai, you can just deal with that trigger that way as well. So. It's definitely a cool design, if nothing else. Like I like cards that have those weird designs like that.
I do. The thing that still catches me off guard and reading it every time is your creatures gain indestructible.
Yeah.
And it just stops there, and you're like, what?
Well, after the misprint on that other card in the set where they forgot the end of turn clause,
right?
That's immediately what I'm like, oh, how'd they do it twice? And then they're like, nope, this one's purposely not supposed to have it.
Well, the first one I'm going to mention here is Mission Briefing, which is a blue card, double blue. It's an instant and it has Surveil 2. And we should actually might as well quick mention the Surveil mechanic. We can do the other ones when we come across them. But Surveil is scry, but it's scry to your graveyard.
Or top. You can leave it on top of your deck.
Or you keep it on top of your library. So what it does is when it you Surveil 2, then you choose an instant or sorcery spell in your graveyard, and you may cast that spell until end of turn. If that card you put into your graveyard, you exile it. So basically, it lets you snapcaster a thing back from your graveyard.
Yep, gives you flashback.
And you get to Surveil first.
Yep.
So presumably you're going to have a good target you want to hit anyway, but this gives you a chance to, number one, set up your draw next turn, and number two, maybe put an even better spell that's in your library in your graveyard. It's just a really useful card, I think. It's always useful to recur spells from your graveyard. In something like a Talran deck, which is where I'm going to run it, it's going to make me a Drake while allowing me to cast a spell that makes another Drake, while also maybe setting up my top of my library. So, I mean, it's not like this isn't a card that's going to be winning tournaments anywhere, but it's just a really nice value card that I'm looking forward to putting in that deck for sure. So since we mentioned Surveil, what are your thoughts on Surveil here?
I love it.
I think it's the best mechanic of the new ones.
I think it's the best mechanic. It may be my favorite mechanic in years. I can't think of the last mechanic I've liked more than Surveil. I'm sure there is one, but I can't think of one that I've seen recently where I've been like, wow, I love that mechanic.
I think Prowess has that spot.
Like
yeah, Prowess
for
is
me.
pretty good.
But Prowess is 5 years ago. I mean, it's been a while.
Dang.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dana, for reminding me of my age.
Yep.
You are welcome. You guys are all getting old enough starting to feel like me. But here's the thing about Surveil too. Like Scry's great. Everyone likes Scry too.
Yep.
But very rarely does putting that card in the bottom of your library do anything. They're maybe in the Grenzo deck or something, which doesn't have access to much Scry anyway because of the colors it's in. But usually it's just fixing the top of your library. Surveil is the next. It does the next step. You're fixing the top of your library, but you're also putting a card in the yard if you want to, which in a lot of commander decks is exactly where you want those cards to be. So like the putting the cards in the bottom of your library is nothing in Scry.
And this is why we tell everybody they should run more graveyard hate.
Right. Absolutely. We'll prepare ourselves for the influx of Twitter responses and Facebook messages for it. But really, exactly. Like there are a ton of decks where this is so much better than Scry. And in a lot of decks, it's not worse. It's like almost never going to be worse than Scry. Even if yes, it feels bad to put a card in your graveyard when you have no recursion. But the odds of you ever seeing it again anyway, and if you're putting it on the bottom of your library in the first place, it's because you don't want to draw it now. Like this is just almost always a better Scry, I think. And in decks that want it, it's a way better Scry.
I believe in Standard it's going to be very powerful.
Oh, yeah.
And it's it feels kind of pushed, too. Like there's a lot of blue cards with the Surveil on it that are pretty good cards anyway.
You want to know what's going to be real fun?
What's that?
Is the Sidisi deck.
Oh, Lord.
Whenever a creature hits a graveyard, make a 2/2.
Yep.
Oh, Surveil is going to be huge with that deck.
There's a ton of decks that want this mechanic. So yeah,
my Alesha deck wants it, but there's not enough.
Dredge and Modern.
Dredge could be. Yep.
Any more instants that are worth talking about? I actually have one more I'll hit on here. If you guys don't have anything else off the top of your heads,
I do.
What's yours, Chris?
How about we talk about this wonderful 5-mana instant called Join Shields?
I don't like this card.
What? I don't like you neither. Jerk.
Read Join Shields to us.
Okay, so 5 mana, 3 colorless, green, white. Oh yeah, it's Selesnya. Of course you don't like this card.
What are you talking about? I play Selesnya.
Untap all creatures you control. They gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So Max, tell me why you don't like this card.
Heroic Intervention costs 2 and it does everything but untap your creatures.
True. That is true.
Is it those creatures or all creatures?
Untap all creatures you control. They gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn.
Okay.
Also, Heroic Intervention is all your permanents gain it.
But I agree Heroic Intervention's better, but that's also like saying, oh man, I don't want to run, this tutor because Demonic Tutor's better. Like sometimes you want both.
True.
I don't know if I want both of these, but I also think just because Heroic Intervention's better doesn't mean this doesn't maybe have a slot.
Right.
Plus, this is uncommon. It's easier for us common folk to get our hands on it.
True.
You live at the card shop. You're no common folk.
You have a cot in back.
It's actually the
I like
next
it too.
door.
I liked it, but I remember reading it going, man, I don't know if I have a deck where I'm gonna run it because I have Heroic Intervention. I don't know if I need 2 of those effects. And you're in Selesnya where not only do you have Heroic Intervention, you have Teferi's Protection as well.
Yep. I like the untap all creatures clause.
I do too.
It's a good card. In my opinion, if someone goes, like I've watched a lot of players that go, okay, I'm going to attack this round because I'm going to board wipe. And you cast this as soon as they attack, and they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't board wipe. So you pretty much pull off the board wipe for a turn. It's
also just going to wreck face and limited. Like at your pre-release when you're like, I'm swinging with all my dudes. And the other person's like, all right, well, I'll just take that 6 damage and I'm going to kill you on the crackback. And they go to kill you on the crackback and you're like, boom.
What's up?
My stuff's untapped. Your stuff all just dies and now I will kill you on the crackback.
I do like the fact that, like, if you swing with all your creatures and someone, like, instant speed routes, untapping them doesn't remove them from combat. So, like, the blocking creatures still die.
Yep.
Or even before declare blockers. So, like, I do see there are some uses. I just don't think in EDH it gets a slot in some of my decks. Sorry, Chris.
Good card, though. The next one I will talk about here is one that has terrible art, but I like the card. Crush Contraband is 3 and a white, and I swear this is Battle Bond art. It's like a big muscle bound dude from Battle Bond, but regardless, it's an instant speed spell that says choose one or both. Exile target artifact and exile target enchantment. So that's the same cost as Return to Dust.
It's easier to cast than Return to Dust.
Easier to cast. it's always hitting 2 targets. Return to Dust problem is if you cast it on your main or on someone else's phase and instant speed, you only get to hit 1 target. So you basically has to be sorcery to hit 2 things. This is always instant speed. You just can't choose between. You can't choose. You're right. You can't choose 2 enchantments or 2 artifacts. It's still an exile though. I don't know if I replace Return to Dust with this, but like my mono white deck, I've been feeling for a while I wanted to put something else in there. I wanted like 1 more artifact enchantment removal spell. And I'm like, I think this will just go in alongside Return to Dust in that deck.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very interesting card in the design space, how similar it is to Return to Dust. But the fact that you can't do 2 of one type is what I don't like. I mean, I'm fine doing Return to Dust in my main phases if it means I get rid of a Sylvan Library or a Phyrexian Arena or Mirari's Wake or any of those big targets. I think in Boros or Mono White, it gets a slot alongside Return to Dust. Having that extra removal spell is just nice.
What I think happens here, I think Return to Dust often gets cast in your main phase and hits the 2 scariest targets in play. This will get cast at instant speed to hit the 1 scariest target in play, and then just something else incidentally. Like all I care about is that doubling season because you just put something on the stack and I need to have it gone, and I might as well hit his Soul Ring.
Yep.
So like that's how it'll get ran. It'll get ran as like a disenchant that also happens to generate value by hitting somebody else's thing.
Yeah.
I think if it didn't exile, I would be less interested. But the fact that it does exile is
exile
really
huge.
useful. All right. Instant speed. Anybody else before we move on? All right. And there's like plenty of cards. We're just trying to get this done before midnight tonight.
Or before the next Ravnica set comes out.
Right, exactly. Sorcery speed spells. What do we got there you guys like? There's a couple of strange board wipes. There's a white one and a black one that are kind of opposites one another where they care about the creature's toughness and the creature's CMC. Do either of those two interest you guys?
The Citywide Bust really interests me because it's destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater at 3 mana.
3 mana is a big deal.
It may be double white, but still 3 mana is huge.
Yeah. I am curious. There's probably some decks that really do care about it. I don't really know.
What?
There you go. That's a good one. Yeah.
Doran players don't want to see it.
Right, for sure. But yeah, no, that should make sense. And there's probably plenty of white, like weenie token kind of decks that are fine with it as well. Yeah, it'll have a home. It'll see play.
Yep.
So, any specific ones you guys want to single out here?
Chris, do you want to go on your triad?
Chris has got to look.
I can't pronounce this one. We're going to call it Mnemonic.
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 I don't know. I can't pronounce some of this stuff today. So this awesome Betrayal card that Chris can't pronounce, and you guys can all make fun of me on Twitter at CMDR Central. So 3 mana, 1 colorless, blue and black, sorcery speed. Exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards. You may cast those cards this turn. And you may spend mana over mana of any color to cast those cards, blah, 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 all that fun stuff.
Mana of any type, not
Is this
color.
any type?
So technically you can use, if there's like a spell that requires the colorless mana from Oath of the Gatewatch.
True.
You can use it for those spells
I
as
never thought about that.
That's hardly ever going to happen.
I wonder if that's why it's worded like that.
It's worded
because
that way.
of something like that. So at the beginning of the next end step, if any of those cards remain exiled, return them to their owner's graveyards. Then you exile the Betrayal card. So,
speaking of Sun Out of the Infinite or stifling triggers, you can just, number 1, stifle the return the cards to people's graveyard trigger right in the turn before that happens. I don't know how often that'll happen, but that's something you can do.
No, honestly, when I look at this card, I was thinking mainly it's going to get played and you're going to go for one specific card. And you don't care about the rest of the cards going back. It's like, okay, you look over, you're like, okay, that guy just casted a Wrath or Return to Dust, like I said, or something, like you said earlier or something. And all you want to do is just cast that one card. So you're casting this to get that card.
But I bet you will also find a bunch of extra value. You'll cast this because you want to Wrath the board, but you'll also go, well, if I'm going to Wrath, I might as well Swords to Plowshares my one creature anyway and gain 3 life. And I might as well cast that, I don't even that
explosive vegetation
that nature's lore and get 1 land into play, and then cast that Brainstorm to set up top of my library.
Yep,
because I have 5 extra mana. And
use
I might
as
well
much
use
as your
cards.
mana as possible. Yeah,
and you get everybody's Soul Ring.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
Oh boy. That would be amusing.
3 mana to get 3 soul rings. I'm okay with that.
No, it's a really splashy, interesting card.
Yep, I do like it. I mean, then again, we don't see a whole lot of Dimir decks anyways around the store, so I'm not sure where this is going to see play in. So,
Max, what do you got for us?
I can't pronounce this one.
Mnemonic.
No.
No? All right.
Circuitous Route?
Circuitous Route.
That one. So it's 3 generic and a green. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards and or gate cards. Put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So it's a 1 mana extra Kadama's Reach that puts them both into play.
Yep. So if you're playing your Maze's End deck, this
or
is
a budget-friendly deck.
Or a budget deck, this is a better Explosive Vegetation if you're playing on a budget because it fetches you 2 duels. Assuming you have Guild Gates in your deck, which I'm guessing you will playing this card. And it's also another enabler for Chris's new Maze's End deck that he's brewing in his brain. I can tell by looking at him.
Yep, I'm going to go on my rant now.
All right.
This is all about this proxy stuff that's been going on. I know that we haven't seen much of it on our stuff, but I've heard from other people about this stuff, and I'm just over it. So this stuff right here that they're printing now allows you to go for specific lands like that.
Yes.
There's no reason you need dual lands in your deck. You don't need shock lands. You can play these budget lands and have no issue with it.
Although I will mention this, the shocks are pre-ordering at around 6 apiece.
Yeah, well, okay, they're getting reprinted, but I'm saying, before you didn't need that kind of stuff.
Sure.
There's 2 other cards in the set that they printed that go well with the gates too that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
You got Gatekeeper Gargoyle, which is 6 mana flyer who's a 3/3. Now he enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter for each gate you control. So say you control 3 gates, he's a 6/6 for 6 with flying.
That's solid.
You also have the new equipment, which is called Glaive of the Guilt Pack. I do believe it's 2 mana to cast. Your creature that's equipped gets +1/+0 and gains menace. Now it gets +1/+0 for each gate you control.
Right.
So there's another thing right there. Then you're talking about your Maze's End. There's other stuff like Hour of Promise lets you go for any 2 lands. So you can go for the gates there.
Yeah.
So there's, in my opinion,
Pierce
there's
Whim.
no reason.
Pierce Whim once you go get your gates as well.
There's no reason for people to have to be talking about, I need to proxy my dual lands, I need to do this and that. No, we're playing in a casual game that you can play anything, and I'm going to build a deck around these cards and prove everyone wrong.
You can win a game with a Maze's End deck.
Yep.
In other alt-win conditions or whatever you want, and you'll be fine. Yes, you're going to occasionally lose to somebody who has the perfect land base. Nothing comes into play tap. That's going to happen because it does. But you're also going to win games. You're going to win plenty of games.
I'm going to build that Ramos deck that we were talking about, and I'm going to play with all these cards just to prove a point to everyone.
Cool. I want to see it because I like the idea of a Maze's End deck, and then you can also throw other alt-win stuff in there as well because it's 5 colors.
Yep.
And you could build like a legit, cool alt-win con deck out of Ramos.
Okay, that's enough of my rant.
All right.
If anyone has any problems with it, you can find me on Twitter @YSquishy. I will talk with you on Twitter. I now have it set up so notifications for my Twitter will explode. So
isn't it Squishy 1?
Was there another Squishy out there? And you had
I don't remember now.
Now I have to look. This is going to be fun.
I do believe it's just @YSquishy. Maybe it is 1. Who knows? If my
Squishy 1.
Okay. You can find me on Twitter @YSquishy1. If you guys want to talk about this, don't bother going through the Commander Central because I usually don't respond with that one. So hit me up personally and we can hash some things out.
All right.
All this time you haven't been including the 1, and that's why everybody's mad at you for not getting back.
There's some random dude out there whose name is actually Squishy, and he's like, "Why do I keep getting these magic tweets? I don't understand.
What is this magic of gatherings?"
All right, my sorcery I like here is Quasi-Duplicate.
Sounds painful.
It's a cackling counterpart. Essentially, it's 2 blue and 1 to cast for sorcery. You create a copy of target creature you control, but instead of flashback for 7, you've got jumpstart. So you can spend the casting cost of the card, which is a blue or 2 blue and a colorless, and then discard a card in order to copy it and cast it again.
Yep.
Essentially, flash it back. Being able to pitch like a land card you don't need, or ramp card or a rock that you don't need, versus spending 7 mana to make a second copy is really, really useful. And like we kind of mentioned with Surveil, putting stuff in the yard is also sometimes useful. Like you might be putting a creature in your graveyard you're intending on reanimating anyway.
Yep, I really do like this card over the other clone effects that are out there.
Cackling Counterpart is really good anyway.
Yep.
Like the Cackling Counterpart, nothing wrong with that card. It's a really solid card, and this I think is probably better.
I could see them going hand in hand together.
For sure, yeah. I don't know if you bump Cackling Counterpart from your deck for this. I think you just probably run them both.
Yep.
Like if you care about cloning stuff, this is just another great version of it. And again, talking about decks like Sultai Sidisi, which we mentioned before with Surveil, same thing here. You might be pitching a zombie that makes you
a
zombie token, and maybe you're pitching Gravecrawler that you're just going to bring back into play. I mean, like, there's a lot of really great interactions with this card in a lot of decks.
Now, does Reassembling Skeleton go back to your hand?
Does not. It goes into play.
Okay.
So
Endless Brood Cockroaches goes back to your hand?
Endless Cockroaches goes back to your hand, yeah.
Ooh.
I feel a loop coming.
And there's at least one more that goes back into play. I think Asylum Skeleton does as well. I'd have to look. Sanitarium Skeleton, sorry.
Okay.
All right. Any more sorceries you guys want to talk about here?
Nope.
I'm golden with the sorceries.
All right. What is up next on the list, gentlemen?
Enchantments.
There's some good enchantments out here. First of all, I will mention the one that I think is maybe also the equivalent of Assassin's Trophy, and that's Divine Visitation. Granted, it's not going to go into every deck and every format, but this is just an enchantment that people are going to want in a bunch of different decks.
All I see this right now is I see a guy going, "Oh, I'll play Divine Visitation, and then I'm going to tap my Gaia's Cradle for my Gave and start making 4/4s." And I'm just going to be like, "Oh no!"
Instead of Teysa making 1/1 Spirit, she makes 4/4 Angels, and that seems good to me. So what it is, it's 5 mana, 3 and 2 white for an enchantment, and if one or more creature tokens would be created under your control, that many 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance are created instead. So it makes Serra Angels for you instead of whatever other token you are making. Now, if you're, maybe playing Lathless, which I don't know how you get this card in your deck, but if you're making 5/5 angels or great dragons, you don't want this.
No.
But if you're kicking 0/1 plant tokens out regularly, or your commander makes 1/1 spirits or 1/1 saprolings, and they become 4/4s with flying and vigilance, that's great.
I'm very happy that this card is white, and it's not another color that could go into a Prosh deck, because that would just be,
oh god, oh dear God,
right?
Yeah, if it was green, that would be really, really bad.
I love this card, but I think the only downside to it is if you care about tribal. So if you're doing soldier tokens or something like that.
And your stuff stacks with that.
This is going to hose you big time.
And I think you just wouldn't run it then.
Right.
And I mentioned this on the EDH Recast talking about it, but there's also a lot of enchantments in the colors that want this in white and green in enchantment in artifact decks, in token decks. Like Cathar's Crusade is the same mana cost, and Doubling Season is 5 as well.
Yep.
And you've got Parallel Lives, Anointed Procession, and you've got there's just a bunch of cards that are enchantments in that same slot, and it's pretty easy to build your token deck and be like, wow, I've got 19 enchantments in this deck. It's almost an enchantment deck then at that point. I think that it's a crowded field for those token decks in terms of 4 or 5 or 6 enchantments.
I got this.
Right. But I still like it a lot. I just think it's going to be a tricky card to work into your deck and find a cut for.
Yep.
Maybe so you don't have to do Cathar's Crusade math. You're like, fine, I'm replacing Cathar's Crusade because I'm sick of trying to figure out how many counters my dudes have anyway.
All of them.
I think this card is probably going to be good in your Jeru deck.
Yes, I might put it in there as well. Being able to turn those Elspeth tokens and stuff into 4/4s is really nice.
Yes.
Elspeth will end up killing them, though, if you neg her.
That's true, right. That's true.
That's why you just attack first and then neg her.
There we go.
Or plus her after.
Right.
Neg her and then the next turn plus her again, and then you just have so much advantage.
Chainveil.
Oh.
So what enchantments do you guys like?
I have a 2-mana one called The Dawn of Hope.
Oh, that makes me feel spiritually hopeful.
I like that card.
It is literally Oloro on an enchantment.
Yep.
His second ability. So whenever you gain life, you may pay 2 colorless if you do draw a card. The second ability on it is 3 colorless and a white, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. Now, for those of you who didn't really go through the spoilers or anything, a lot of the token generators are 1/1 soldiers with lifelink.
Yeah, that's a theme of this set, like a small sub-theme of Selesnya is soldiers with lifelink.
Yep. I really like this card in general. It seems really good in any type of life gain deck.
Yeah.
The ability to just start drawing cards. The big deck I thought about this, and Max is going to hate me because he already told me no for the other one, was your Dramoka deck. the amount of life gain you have in there and the ability to draw cards off of it, this seems pretty good.
And you have a ton of
really good.
And you also have a ton of mana in that deck.
Yes.
You ramp a lot, and there's plenty of times when you have mana to burn. I might as well swing with, Dramoka. I might as well draw a card with that extra mana I have.
Yep.
I will never make the soldier.
Probably
because
not.
they
you never
don't
know.
fly.
It doesn't
Right,
matter.
That's true.
It could just be, I have all this extra mana at the end of someone's turn. I might as well use it on something.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you, Chris. This is going to get a slot in Dramoka. It's so cheap costed-wise, so there's some more stuff on the top end of the group that could easily come out.
I do see this card, the second ability, actually flying underneath the radar. Same with the Skulk one. The Skulk enchantment that was printed in Shadows over Innistrad.
Behind the scenes.
Yep, where you could pump your guys, but everyone always forgets about that ability. I think this could be the same where they're like, oh, yeah, he's going to draw a card, okay, whatever, and then all of a sudden one turn, she's like, I'm going to make 8 tokens. And they're going to be like, how? And then they see that, and I think it's going to be real good.
Yeah.
How about you, Max? Anything you like here?
I really like Enhanced Surveillance.
That's a cool card.
So it is 1 in a blue. You may look at an additional 2 cards every time you surveil.
Yep, so you're scrying 3?
Or
potentially
more, because some of these surveil cards say surveil 2, surveil 4.
Yep.
So it's whatever it is plus 2. And it also has Exile Enhanced Surveillance, shuffle your graveyard into your library. So for those people who don't like that we continue to say put graveyard hate into your decks, here's a way around that. I just think, like I said, surveil I think is my favorite mechanic from this set. And for the decks that want to feed your graveyard for Reanimator or the Sidisi zombie deck, this is just gas.
Why do all these cards have to be blue? Why
Right?
can't they be black?
Yeah, right.
Make my Alesha deck real good, real fast.
No.
Yeah, I feel like the blue half of Dimir feels like it's really being pushed this time through.
Yep.
I'm going to mention Experimental Frenzy as one I don't know if I like, but I am curious about. It's 3 and a red for an enchantment. You may look at the top card of your library at any time, which is an unusual effect for red. You may play the top card of your library, and it doesn't say cast, it says play, but you can't play cards from your hand. And you can also then spend 3 and a red to destroy Experimental Frenzy. So basically, when you're in top deck mode in red is when you wouldn't play this beforehand, but when you're down to 1 card in hand and you're in top deck mode, this gives you access to the top card of your library, which you're going to hope is something you can play or a land, which would then give you a chance to play something else at the top of your library. So it's card advantage in red.
It is. I read it too, and I'm like, oh, this seems really good. This seems really good. And then I read the clause where you couldn't play cards from your hand. I'm like, okay, there it is.
Yep.
Wah, wah.
Now, I do like this as a way to donate in your Zendra deck to somebody who doesn't have red and can't pay their removal cost.
Yep.
So I think that would be kind of fun. But I also think that there's maybe situations where if you're playing a suicide red deck that just empties its hand and doesn't have ways to refill it, this might be worth playing. I don't know, but I think it's a cool design. I'm intrigued, even if I don't know that I'm going to try it.
I think that with Sensei's Divining Top could be pretty nice too, because you still draw a card during every turn. You just can't play them, so you can start setting up your hand for later when you're going to crack it off, but still set up the top card of your library to be able to use it for something.
Max, any other ones to jump out at you?
Nope.
Chris, how about yourself?
Nope.
All right. Let's move on and talk about creatures. What do you guys like here?
Chris has a smirk on his face, so he can go first.
He's laughing too much. Max, what's yours then?
My one is Blood Operative. It is 1 black for a creature vampire assassin who is a 3/1. It has lifelink. And then when Blood Operative enters the battlefield, you may exile target card from a graveyard. So, graveyard hate.
Yep. Don't run it.
Don't run it, apparently. I guess we're wrong in saying that. Whenever you surveil, if Blood Operative is in your graveyard, you may pay 3 life. If you do, return it to your hand.
So it just recurs itself whenever you surveil.
Yeah, that seems fun.
Particularly if you happen to be playing a commander that I'm sure we'll talk about at some point here before we're done that has surveil baked in, who happens to be in those colors and is a vampire.
Rawr.
What?
Yeah, that's a cool creature.
I have a lot of creatures.
Who's your first one?
We'll talk about Plague Crafter. 2 colorless and a black. 3/2. So it's a human shaman, which not sure how this might play for some people. Shamans, I'm not sure. So when it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature or a planeswalker.
So it's a flesh bag, but it also lets you sacrifice a planeswalker. So if you're that guy, because there's always that one person who somehow doesn't have a creature out when flesh bag hits,
and they're just like, oh yeah,
you gotta lose your walker too.
And then all of a sudden it goes, oh, you don't have a walker or a creature? Guess what? Here's another tagline of text. Each player who can't do a sacrifice discards a card.
So you're gonna hit. Everyone's gonna get hit in some way.
Dear Lord.
I really like this card, honestly. And the big thing that came to mind for me is for the 1v1 commander scene.
Sure.
It replaces the other 2 cards, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's decks where it not being a zombie is relevant, particularly if you're playing a zombie deck. But like outside of that, unless you're playing specifically a zombie tribal deck where you care about it being a zombie, it's disgusting. Great card. How are you, Max?
I kind of want to build Marin again now with this.
It's going to be in Marin. It'll be in Muldrolth. It'll be in Carador lists. Yeah.
It might make Modern Humans.
It might. That was another thing that crossed my mind.
It's only 3 mana.
If it was 2 for sure, but like at 3 is a little steep, but still. Well, I'm going to mention mine, even though I'm never going to play it because I don't play elves. Beast Whisperer, 2 and 2 green for an elf druid. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. And it's a 2/3/2. Like that could have been a 1/1 and it would still be a good card, but it's a 2/3. Play an elf, draw a card. Play an elf, draw a card. I mean, like in an elf deck, it's gross. In a lot of decks, it's gross.
I think just in mono green in general, that lacks the decent ability to do card draw. I mean, you have okay card draw, but it's all high CMC stuff.
It makes your commander into Reiki.
It does.
Essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a really strong card. I like it a lot. I don't have a deck when I'm going to run it. I've got no plans about an elf deck or anything, but like this, I bet gets jammed into every single elf tribal deck out there.
So I have another Whisperer.
Oh, yes. I know what this one is.
How about the Doom Whisperer?
That was one I was going to talk about, but I figured you would already have it.
Also crazy in a lot of decks.
Yes. So 3 colorless, 2 black for a demon, a nightmare demon. Flying trample, 6/6. Pay 2 life, surveil 2.
And that's not a tap ability. That's just you do that whenever you want to.
Yep. And this just plays into black strategy of reanimating stuff. Let's just pitch stuff in my graveyard, reanimate it, do whatever I need to do.
Or Gitrog Monster strategy of putting lands into your graveyard.
Oh, boy.
Or even Windgrace, who wants to bring them back with his -3 ability.
Man, and I can't believe who are those guys that we were listening to the other day who talk about all that graveyard hate that should be put in decks?
I don't know, but they don't
know what they're talking about. You should listen to those dudes. Graveyard hate will save you.
No, the way that this set is shaping out, it really leads me to believe that people do need to play more graveyard hate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
I do have another one.
What's that?
Goblin Crater Maker.
That is a cool card.
It is 1 and a red for a 2/2 Goblin Warrior, and it has this cool little line of text that says, 1 generic mana, sacrifice it, choose 1, deal 2 damage to target creature, or destroy colorless non-land permanent. So, by Tron, by Karn, by Ugin.
It hits a lot of targets.
Hits a lot of things. By Soul Ring.
It's going to be extremely awesome and limited. I notice a lot of people, when I draft, Explosive Apparatus was in the last set, I do believe, in M19. A lot of people pass that, and it's one of the early picks that I take because it is removal baked in.
Yeah.
Worst comes to worst, I shoot you in the face, which helps me win too.
Sure. I have a 2-drop, colorless and a black for Burglar Rat. It's a creature type rat for a 1/1 in black. When Burglar Rat enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card.
Each opponent, that's always a great...
Not yourself. You don't get hit. So it's basically 2 mana to force everyone to discard. Now, like, that in and of itself probably isn't amazing, but you're going to see this show up in the new Rats deck because it gets +1/+1 for each rat, so it buffs
and
existing.
it does an ability.
And it has an ability, and I will bet you're also going to see this in, like, recursion decks like Marin or Carador or whatever, because being able to recur this a couple times, you're just going to empty people's hands out really, really quickly. And
Agreed.
It's cheap to cast. It's very, very efficient. So it's never going to be an expensive card, but like it's going to show up in commander decks even though it looks pretty unassuming when you're glancing at it, it's really, really solid. Chris, I know you have a few more. What do you got?
Yep. The next two after this one are both going to be legendary, so we'll save those for later.
Okay.
But this one is actually the first mythic that I brought up, I do believe. In Underrealm Lich.
Ugh.
3 colorless, black and green. Now, it's a zombie elf shaman. I love how they keep adding,
Extra.
labeling on
Right.
them. It's a 4/3. So its text says, if you would draw a card, instead look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put one of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. So already you're playing in the black-green, and we were just talking about Marin, Sidisi, all these other things. That's pretty good. Second line is, pay 4 life. Underrealm Lich gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. So basically the way I look at it is, I just go really aggressive with this card. It's already tapped for attacking. Why not just give it indestructible when it needs it?
Right. And that's a replacement effect on your card draw. So if you have a Sylvan Library out, where it says you may draw 3 cards,
Yep.
you can use this ability on the cards, and then because it replaced the draw ability, you don't have to put them back or take the 4 life. It's kind of like how Dredge works with Sylvan Library as well. So that's a nice interaction too when you're in the right colors for it.
It is. I do like it with, seeing how it's in black too with Phyrexian Arena. It's like, I'll pay 1 life to look at the top 3 cards and take one of them.
Yeah, it is really, really solid. I don't know if it just gets generically put in a deck, but I think the decks that do a thing that interact with it, it's pretty strong.
Yep, I definitely think in a graveyard deck, this is probably going to be a good key piece in it.
Yeah. I will also quick mention Night Veil Predator, just because it's kind of, I think, a neat card in black-blue. So it's a Dimir card. Double blue, double black, so 4 mana for a 3/3 vampire that has flying and death touch and hexproof. That's going to be a pain to deal with in a lot of format, and limited especially, but if you're playing a vampire deck that has access to blue, that's just a really nice, annoying body to put into play. 3 keywords is always useful. And I don't think I've ever seen that combo of 3 keywords on a particular creature before.
I think it is the first time.
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of
I
one.
do believe
I've
there's
seen
one
that.
in Boros that has Vigilance, Double Strike, and something from this set too.
Yes.
I like seeing those
2
weird,
mana one.
the
Yep.
weird combos of keywords like that in a thing. All right. So since we talked about regular creatures here, let's segue into special creatures, which would be commanders. So which one do you like the most, Chris? Which commander are you most into here? I mean, obviously,
I have 2 of them.
obviously Aurelia and
Yes, Aurelia, the
and Tajik.
greatest Boros general ever printed.
Max is intentionally
God.
avoiding looking at Chris.
I got
now.
nothing.
He doesn't even want to participate.
This is just so much fun. No, actually, I don't believe that this is. I believe that Tajik is probably the best one ever printed so far, in my opinion. He is really powerful.
I think they're both strong and limited, but in Commander, I don't know if I like him.
As a general, Tajik is so good. Okay, so 3 mana, 1 colorless, red, white.
Okay.
He has haste.
Which is nice.
Yep, he's a 3/2. Mentor. Prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to other creatures you control. And then for red, white, he gains first strike until end of turn. I think as a base aggro Boros general, he is the best.
Even over original Aurelia.
Yes. She's too much mana.
She's a lot of mana. I think he definitely probably goes in your Archangel Avacyn deck, where when she flips, it keeps your guys from taking damage. I think he's fine. I just don't know. I mean, so let's say he is slightly better than the other Boros aggro generals. Is it still good enough? Does it still matter?
It is.
Does it?
It
Okay.
is.
I don't see anywhere on this card that says draw a card.
Doesn't need to be. It's Boros.
That's why you need to draw a card.
Nope, you need to kill before you need to draw cards. That's the whole point of playing that.
Okay.
Because you're top deck
You're
hero.
right. I do think that's true. That's what Boros needs to do is swing in and then play your enchantment that says you can't cast spells from your hand and just play top of your library and win the game.
Yep. I love it. And then cast Blasphemous Act and none of your creatures die.
That's true.
Yeah.
And you would.
Except him.
In this deck, you'll run Chain Reaction and Blasphemous Act and stuff that's all damage based versus the whiteboard wipe, so you can
You'll play
skirt
Pyrrhemia,
them.
all that stuff
Sure.
to, get around that kind of stuff.
Repercussion.
Don't give
all
me
right.
the flashbacks.
So I'm guessing yours is the same card, Max. You're also out with Tajik?
No.
No, you didn't. Oh,
I didn't.
Okay.
I know, it's very weird because I wasn't going to talk about him because I thought Max was.
I went completely out of my playstyle here.
Who'd you go with?
I went with Izani Thousand-Eyed.
I like Izani. I just think the casting cost is not ideal.
The casting cost is terrible. 2 double black, double green for a 2/3 elf shaman, but it has undergrowth, and undergrowth is one of the new mechanics. So this one says when he enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token for each creature card in your graveyard. And then you can pay black and green to sacrifice another creature. You gain 1 life and draw a card. See, this guy lets me draw a card. Tajik doesn't.
Different colors there, homie. Come on.
Yeah. So what? I still get to draw a card. I like this guy in maybe like a green-black token deck. He fuels himself. You can throw stuff in your graveyard because black does have a little bit of surveil, I think, in the set, but not a lot. It's just interesting for a guy that doesn't play Golgari.
Yeah, I like the card, and I would be considering building it if it was 2 black-green.
Right.
Or even Glissa's cost, which is double green-black or something. Or even, was Gerard double black, double green?
Yes.
But 6 mana, it feels like a lot.
Yeah, it seems like they really pushed that because like Niv Mizzet is 3 blue, 3 red. All the big
uncommons that you want to play are double in their colors.
It's very different how they did that kind of stuff this time.
And I'll be curious if that's something to deal with the set coming out, because it doesn't seem like it's worried about the sets in the past fixing the mana too perfectly.
Oh my God, we're going back to Theros. We're going to have devotion again.
We did it. Yeah.
Well, going back to the card that said you can, the betrayal card, mnemonic betrayal, that says you can use mana as any type. Maybe that's foreshadowing wastes are coming back or something with the Phyrexian.
Or Phyrexians in the third set, which I still think is a very distinct possibility. Yeah, maybe.
We've seen Karn, and his goal is to go and fix Phyrexia, so...
Yep. Mine is Etrata the Silencer, legendary creature vampire assassin for 2 and blue-black, 3/5. Etrata the Silencer can't be blocked. Whenever Etrata deals combat damage to a player, exile target creature that player controls and put a hit counter on that card. That player loses the game if they own 3 or more exiled cards with hit counters on them. So this would be a really cool card if it ended there. However, it then says Etrata's owner shuffles Etrata into their library.
Now here's the question I had for you guys with this card. According to the rules of Commander, the owner of the card has the choice, if it's your general, to put it back into the command zone.
Correct.
Now, does that rules text go over that? Does
Yes.
it override it?
Yes, so you will have the choice to then put this in your command zone.
So you do. So
Yeah.
the rules text doesn't say you have to put it into
No,
it does not.
Okay.
Same reason why you can't Mindslaver someone and tuck their commander.
Yep.
We ran into that the other night.
And I ran into it like a month ago.
So in this case, I mean, you will get a chance to put it back in your command zone, but that means to kill one person, you're going to have to recast it, assuming you cast it once and swing in, recast it twice more to get up to those 3 counters. And your command tax is going to get really steep really quick. But you can also avoid this. We've mentioned Sundial the Infinite a few times. You can sundial that trigger. You can stifle that trigger. There's different ways you can get around that, time stop, whatever.
Didn't they also print a land that said that your commander costs X cheaper or whatever?
For each time you've cast it.
Yep.
There's also a couple of things you can do, like Stronic Resonator, to copy the trigger in the stack to do 2 creatures with 1 swing.
You could Helm of the Host it.
Right, sure. Yeah.
That new artifact, I do believe he's a 5/3 with trample. Whenever he deals damage, you can just play your commander for free out of the command zone.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's lots of ways around this. It reminds me of Alenda a little bit, who was in Ixalan, where she only made the tokens when she went into your graveyard.
Yep.
So it kind of gives you an extra hoop to jump through, but maybe that's interesting for some people too.
Yeah. She's definitely extremely interesting. It's a cool design space. I think, though, like, especially in our shop, we have a lot of token decks around. So, like, if the token is the only creature,
right,
it doesn't work.
I hadn't thought of that. That's a good point. You have to be hitting a body that's you have to be hitting a card. It has to have a card. I didn't think of that. That's a good point.
If they don't have any creatures, you don't have to worry about the shuffle clause. It's only if you do the hit counter.
And if you hit their commander, they're going to replacement effect it and put it back into the command zone, in which case
you still have to shuffle.
And you lose it doesn't count as a hit counter then, because it's not exiled.
So I think it's cool. I think there's definitely ways to build her. I think she might be kind of cool for 1v1 against like the creature aggro decks, because when people flood the board with like warriors or something, Chris is shaking his head at me, so I'm just going to stop talking.
I think she's too slow.
The best blue-black general is the new ninja
Tiger
general.
Claw, yeah.
Yep.
Any other commanders you guys particularly like? I like the Lazov. I think he's interesting.
I like Niv Mizzet. I just hate his casting cost.
Well, he's also not very different than the previous two Niv Mizzets. Like, you could literally swap out the Niv Mizzet, the old Niv Mizzet from your deck, put the new one in, and not have to change a single thing your deck does. And vice versa. I think all three of them kind of work that way, which is fine, and that's not a problem, but there's just not much to say other than it's like the old Niv
I wish he would have been something different.
Yeah. So, I think that's it for me. I don't know if anything about the commanders that hasn't been said. I mean, I was a little disappointed, maybe.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of really good legends.
Right, there isn't.
I feel like all the legends that would interest me, there are just better versions of them in other
kind
cards.
Of. Like both the Selesnya ones feel like they do token things, and Reese Redeem maybe does that better.
Right.
I'm just hoping for next set. Don't screw up my Rakdos. That's all I got to say.
Don't screw up my Azorius.
But if you go back and think about it, though, like Return to Ravnica, there's a ton of great cards in Return to Ravnica, and they're not legendary. Like, for all the good stuff in there, you don't see the commanders that often out of that set.
Yep.
The great cards you think of are Rift and Supreme Verdict and Merciless Eviction and Vandal Blast and Abrupt Decay. You're not thinking of the original Emerald Tendrils, or not thinking of Lavinia the 10th, or
True.
Either Asperia. I play an Asperia deck, but like, that's not a standout card or anything, aside from basically Niv Mizzet and the first Teysa and Grand Arbiter. So like,
now I do believe you won't be getting a new Asperia, will you?
I will not, since she's
she did.
She's depicted in Assassin's Trophy. Yeah, she is a chair, or River Vrask is using her for currently.
Which I am curious for the story, because her and Ugin are very close.
They also showed there's art on one of the cards, something of the guilds that also interacts with guild gates. It's a blue enchantment. Whenever you play a gate, you draw a card. But on the art, it's as Asperia is trying to get the guilds to cooperate. And I'm guessing that's why she winds up getting killed, is because maybe we should team up to deal with this threat, and that's probably what happens in the story, I'm going to guess.
Yeah. I'm surprised we didn't get a new cycle of charms.
I kind of am too, although we do have 2 more sets, so they could
True.
be saving that cycle for something else. But we do have half the guilds in this set, so it would have made sense to do those guilds charms in this set. And
unless they're going to do them all in the final set.
Maybe, yeah, that could be.
I would have liked charms over those lockets any day.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Or signets again.
Signets were just reprinted in Modern Master 17,
And I get it, they are probably too strong for standard. I get it, that's fine.
And limited, if anything.
Yeah.
Probably limited.
So, all told, what are your thoughts here in the set? Do you like it? Are you fine with it? Do you dislike it?
I really like it. From a commander standpoint, it's so-so, I guess. Now, from a standard standpoint, I'm loving it.
That's a good point, because that was my first thought. I felt like it was a little disappointing for commander, but I do agree it looks like a great standard set. And I feel like they've been designing a lot of things for commander. I think Ixalan is very much a set designed for commander, and I think you could kind of feel that in standard. This feels like a standard set first and foremost.
Yep.
Which maybe makes sense because it's Ravnica too. So I agree with that.
It's their bread and butter set, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. And, standard's their baby too. Like, it's probably the most popular from I think it's just ahead of commander in terms of revenue. So I get it. It makes sense. What are your thoughts, Max?
Yeah, I agree. It's not overwhelmingly awesome for commander, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of good commons and uncommons that will help support my decks or the decks I want to build, but there's no standout like, I want to build that.
Sure.
So.
But I also can't think of the last time I looked at a set and thought, this will be a fun, interesting standard.
Right.
And that's how I feel about this. I feel like
I think it's going to be amazing limited draft too.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
so many different things you can do with it. It's gonna be pretty fun.
Did you guys pick your guild for the pre-release?
Indeed.
I did as well.
What did you pick?
I picked Dimir.
What did you pick, Max?
Selesnya.
I picked Dimir as well, but I actually might change the Golgari. I might let the shop know and switch over. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why I picked Dimir. Then I'm like, surveil. I just want to surveil all day long.
I picked Dimir on the off chance, and I don't know if this is what's going to happen, if they print the Shocklands in the foil slot.
They do.
Yes, they do.
So
it could be your promo.
This is my guessing, saying that Watery Grave is going to be expensive in foil.
Okay.
With the timestamp and the new art. 5 years down the road.
Sure.
I want that time-stamped cool mythic instant that makes all the tokens for all the creatures you control.
Nice.
That's the only reason I chose Selesnya.
Okay.
I didn't want to risk getting a timestamped greatest Boros general ever.
Well, that's actually part of the reason I was thinking.
I would trade you for it.
Well, that's part of the reason I'm thinking about going over to Golgari is I want an Assassin's Trophy for my Glissa deck, and I don't want to spend $120 on a foil. So I'm like,
yep.
yeah, take the chance and I'll get one.
Yeah.
So, okay. Our final sign-out question here is Assassin's Trophy adjacent. So it's obviously a great card. We talked about it, and it's going to go in a lot of decks, which we also mentioned. So when a card like that comes along that is clearly so good it has to go in decks, do you usually have a plan in terms of like, okay, this is going to replace something, or do you just look at it and go, because like in the case of this, it's a removal spell. So do you say, okay, I don't need another removal spell, I'm just going to remove my worst card? Or do you say, no, this is what's going to replace Putrefy, for example? Or do you just wing it depending on the deck? How does that work?
In my opinion, we'll use this card as the example. I would cut something that does less for this card. Especially in your green and black, you have so many other removal spells. This is just way better than all of them.
Right.
And we just got Windgrace's Judgment on top of that.
Yep. So cutting something so you're not, because if you overload on removal, it actually harms your deck. And I've seen that out of a lot of people who build decks. They have so much removal, but they have nothing else going on with their deck.
You can spend your entire game playing policemen and solving problems, and then empty your hand and use all your mana up while other people are doing their own things. Yeah, you could. But if you play good Magic, quote unquote, you can kind of screw yourself for sure. Max, how about you?
Yeah. I think it just replaces, like Chris said, something that doesn't do something as well.
I think particularly in these colors where there's, like Chris said, so many options. I remember when Anguish Unmaking came out, I was like, do I pull Utter End or do I pull Vindicate? I'm like, probably pull Vindicate. But I didn't. I just added it in.
Yep, that's what I did too.
But I feel like, and I feel like next time we get a really good one in Orzhov, then we're at the saturation point where Vindicate probably comes out. And I think we're at the saturation point with targeted removal that's really good in Golgari that I kind of agree I'm probably going to wind up pulling Putrefy.
Yeah, I mean, if you go by that example, Putrefy is just worse all around.
It is.
One
it's a worse
mana
card.
more, doesn't quite hit as much. And
I like Putrefy, but I think this just winds up because I don't need Putrefy and Beast Within and this and Maelstrom Pulse and Windgrace's Judgment. Like, I don't need all of those cards. Something has to. I think this is the one in Golgari that puts me over the top where I just pull a card out. Kind of like we were discussing with the lands. Did the cycling lands put you over the top where you felt you didn't need another one of the older sequences of lands? Same thing here. I think this puts me over the top where I don't need a Putrefy or a Hero's Downfall or something.
Right.
But I'm curious what everyone out there in the Twitterverse and Facebook land and
Patreon
and wherever wants to say about that. Is there a rough thing you do where if you add a new card, do you pull a similar one, or is it something you decide on the fly, or do you think of things in terms of saturation like this one where there's so many good Golgari removal spells you're going to bump one of them because there's just too many now? Let us know what you think of that. You can find us on the Twitter birds at Commander Central. So reach out to us there. We will be back next week talking about something we have not decided yet because
we're professionals.
And we just wing it. So until then, I am Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.